Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Alfred Boyadgis. He's the CEO and co-founder of Forcite. Alfred, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you going?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. Enjoying the sunny Californian weather. Wish I was on my bike, but
yeah, there's some beautiful landscapes to ride in, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially up in like Skyline and stuff. Like,
sure,
pretty cool roads, gotta say. Yeah,
sure. So before we get into everything that you guys are doing at Forcite, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
I grew up in Sydney's inner west, so Sydney, Australia. It was in kind of like the poorer sort of areas in Sydney. Like I grew up next to a river. And often was around like cars and motorbikes and stuff. And I used to work on them with my dad, actually.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
At an earlier age, I always liked building things and just, inventing stuff, drawing pictures, things like that. When I was in high school, I built an electric saxophone, which actually I just built it out of like electronic parts that I kind of found around, and that won I was ranked the number one person in Australia out of high school for design and technology.
Very cool.
So from there I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at doing inventing and building things. So I enrolled in the industrial design program at the University of New South Wales. And there I, designed a whole bunch of cool things and really enjoyed highlighting my skills there. I ended up graduating from there in 2012 with first class honors from my class. So it was an industrial design and mechanical engineering degree. And from there, I ended up getting a job in a very boring structural engineering firm as my first job out of university.
All right.
Did that for a couple of years, learned the ropes of corporate stuff and thought, wasn't really for me. I kept getting into arguments with management about how they should do things and like new ideas and stuff, but I kept getting shot down as like, you're not senior enough to, make those types of decisions. So, I quit that job and ended up working in branding. So I did a lot of marketing and branding work for liquor agencies.
Oh,
and I thought that was fun. And that was like more of a creative side, but I felt I wasn't really engineering anything or inventing anything for humanity or like, something I could, build a legacy on. So, I quit that job and then got a job with Intellectual Ventures, which is, I think it's one of Bill Gates' venture fund / design firmy kind of.
Very cool.
So started working for them, and like I really started to see how like building IP, building hardware, building software together kind of melds into something really, really cool. And I thought, I could probably do this myself, but worked there for about 2 years. And that's when I experienced my motorcycle accident. And I went around a corner. Actually two. So I had a motorcycle accident at university when I was doing my final year of university, and that led me to first building what the idea of Forcite was as like a police helmet, actually. That was about reducing reaction times for police officers and being able to see things before they happen and everything. That university project won Red Dot Design Award and won Dyson Award.
Wow, congrats,
a whole
man.
bunch
Those
of
are
others.
huge.
Yeah. So I won essentially every design award there was as a graduating student.
Very cool.
And I was very top of my class. So, that got me a lot of good jobs to begin with. And essentially, I had another motorcycle accident after I left Intellectual Ventures, and I was like, damn it, I went through like an oil slick and really messed my bike up and messed my knee up in the process. And I was just so angry at like click on cameras and comset things, and how there was like no technology on the bike itself like you would find in a car, and I can't use my phone, and there was just all this stuff that could have stopped this particular accident from happening. So I incorporated a company called Forcite Helmet Systems, and teamed up with a friend of mine who was coming back from Hong Kong, Julian Chow, who's our co-founder. And we got a whole bunch of investors on board that actually pushed us towards doing a snow sports helmet, which I know sounds really, really odd, but we thought, that's the low-hanging fruit. Let's do that first. But we totally underestimated that market space, and I would classify it as like a market didn't have the product market fit when we put it out there, simply because we didn't fully understand that market correctly, and we were kind of not really passionate 100% about building that product. We just wanted to get to the motorcycle product. So 3 years went by of us building that with some investors. Ultimately didn't work out sales-wise, and we ended up selling the IP to a big sporting agency in the US, who ended up incorporating it into a training system, and the money from that we used to design the first motorcycle good. And at the time, I was out drinking in Sydney, and I met a guy named Takashi Kaeda, who's the CEO of Yamaha Motor Group Australia now. So just as like a coincidence,
that's
for
cool.
Our product, he thought it was really cool and everything, but it needed some work in like the trends inside the industry. So he ended up becoming my mentor along the process. We spent the next year and a half designing the Forcite Mark I helmet and software system up until its launch last month, which within 48 hours we had sold 700 of them.
Wow, congrats, that's huge.
Yeah. So the next week, the next couple of days, we essentially sold the rest of them, doing a tour all around Australia. Our website crashed when we launched. We had 5,000 people in a private Facebook group as the community, and like the biggest piece of advice I could ever give is bring your customers along for the journey in the best way possible, is like just through a private Facebook page, and let them know what you're doing, like let them know when you're going to launch, let them know everything, like bring them along for that journey. And what happened was, it was just like this explosion when we launched in Australia, and over the period of a two-day weekend, we rented out a racetrack. We had people come and try out their helmets. We had, and there's videos of this all on YouTube. We had 1,000 people show up over 2 days. I had lines of people down the street waiting to see this helmet, and they were just coming in. They were just buying it. Like they're just looking at it, checking it aside, and buying it. And I was like, wow, like people really want this. And like, it was really refreshing as an entrepreneur. Cause like we were out there on the track with like covered in grease and smelled like gasoline, at like 6 o'clock in the morning after website crash, this guy's bringing us Red Bull, and like, we didn't really know what we were doing. But at the end of the day, like we had a flow of how we demonstrate this to customers. Anyway, went around Australia to all the major dealerships, got them all on board, show all the customers around Australia. The first 1,000 units we sold were called Founders Editions. Okay. So, so we put all these people into a new club called the Founders Club. Very cool. I'd like to think of ourselves as a 1,000-person, there's 1,000 founders of our company, and I really treat those guys as I would, which is super important for your early customers, of taking that ownership in what you guys are doing, because when they meet someone that rides a motorbike, they are really happy to explain the product and everything. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Very cool. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the technology that you guys have actually put into the helmet and how that connects to an app on your phone. Do you want to walk us through how that works and the features inside the helmet and inside the app?
Yeah, sure. So we're a mobility safety technology company, and we have like a three-part system actually. So the first part is our data system and navigation through the app, and then there's the helmet, which is like our first product into the market, which pairs with that. So you can actually use the app without the helmet independently. And the third part is our back-end service system, where there's a level of the machine learning technology which takes place there. The helmet itself, imagine a carbon fiber, full-faced helmet, quite slick. Looks a little bit like a X-Lite or AGV, if you know helmets. Inside the chin bar is a camera system. The chin bar is like the jaw of the helmet. There's a camera system. And that camera system is connected to a whole bunch of little accelerometers and sensors. So when you pick the helmet up, it automatically starts recording video and tracking your location through the app. And where that's like really useful is like for insurance, and making sure that the camera is on when you go for a ride and not really worrying about whether it's on or off. The ability to upload that information to the cloud for safe storage is something we're working on as well. Then, like, imagine you put the helmet on for the first time. Just below your periphery vision, there's what you would see in like a Formula One car steering wheel, like a bunch of little lights underneath a waveguide.
Okay.
And what happens is, as you're riding around, if there's like police in the area, speed cameras, hazards ahead, anything that will be even bad weather, right, have been reported into our app by us or by our customers, or if they're open source APIs out there, we pull that information in, and those lights flash different colors and patterns, and give you different audio depending on what's happening around you at the time. So all you have to do is put the helmet on, go out for a ride, automatically starts recording video, automatically starts looking for things that may be interesting to you. So if you're on a super sports bike and you tend to go faster, it's automatically going to start like telling you about police in the area through Waze or like speed cameras, or it'll even take you to roads that are more suited to a super sports bike. So
interesting.
So the little lights inside the helmet, they actually, like, if you go for it, like, let's say we're doing navigation, they'll actually go from right to left or left to right in like an orange pattern, telling you to turn left here or turn right there or veer right or on a highway, because like at speed, like all this augmented reality style products which we've seen in the past kind of come out of the Bay Area in helmets are actually, like, in my opinion and in our team's opinion, they're very dangerous and distracting at high speed, especially if you're on a high-powered motorcycle. So we went down the path of like creating a technology that was from motorsport and used in motorsport, and reappropriated it for motorcycling and for road use. So in a nutshell, the mobile application itself has like when you first boot it up, there's like a navigation screen, like you would see inside a Tesla. Looks very similar to that. Then it scans the area for things that are interesting to you up to 25 kilometers, which I think is, my conversion to miles isn't so great, so I won't say anything off the top of my head. So all these little icons, which look like Grand Theft Auto style looking icons, will populate down onto the map. And they'll mean all different things that are of stuff that's happening around you. And every couple of milliseconds, it will refresh and ping our server system and repopulate that data onto the map. Also in the app, there's video editing tools. And something really interesting about our video editing is it actually uses a map as the time signature to the video. So if you have like 5 or 6 hours of video, you're not going to want to like try to remember a time point where something may have happened in front of you. You'll use the map. And as riders, we're really used to using maps, and I can remember where that corner is, versus like a photographer who can remember time signatures and puts markers and stamps at those.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty much what it is. We launched the product in US dollars. We priced it at $549 introductory price, and that came with like a handlebar controller and a few extra visors. We were partnered with MV Agusta in Australia, so we gave away MV Agusta Brutale Double R, which is quite an exotic Italian bike, as part of the draw for the first 1,000 as well.
Wow.
So we plan to do a similar thing over here. So we have $549 introductory price. The retail price of this helmet is $949, making it the only ECE certified and the only smart helmet in the middle class category. So you have your super high end augmented reality type stuff, which is like $14.99 to $17.99, and then you have like your lower end, like sort of center momentum style products, which are around the $600 mark, but don't have this level of functionality. And we sit right in the center.
Gotcha.
And that's where we feel like that's the gap in the market, and that's what riders want, is like that affordability. Like, there's an old saying, I think it came from Henry Ford, and it's like, there's no point taxing a seatbelt, right? So so if you really, the core point of the business is to help people and save riders. Like, it shouldn't be expensive. Like, I feel that all the engineering we did to make the product and the hardware actually quite affordable has sort of paid off in a way, and put all the functionality in the software versus investing deeply in very complex hardware.
Interesting. Smart. So you quickly covered it, but I want to dive into, you have like a finger control piece. How does that work, and where does that sit on the bike?
Yeah, so there's like, imagine like a little triangle looking button array, and there's 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 buttons on each corner and 1 in the center, and there's 2 little ones on the side for volume, to control volume and skip tracks and music.
Right.
This gets situated, and I'll tell you what the buttons do in a sec.
Sure.
This gets situated on the handlebar. There's a handlebar mount that goes next to your clutch. So it's just above your clutch or just below your clutch, depending on what type of bike you ride.
Sure.
And it's very easily accessible with your thumb. You can unscrew that and then screw that onto a tank mount. If you have a bike that has really close fairings or full face fairings on it. On the handlebar controller itself, there's a camera icon, and that camera icon turns the camera on and off. If you hold down the camera icon, it actually wipes all the footage off the SDXC card, which is inside the helmet, which is removable and replaceable. There's a phone, little phone icon, obviously, like would answer and deny phone calls. There's a map icon. The map icon is something really unique to our system. And what that does is, if you press the map icon once, what it does is it repeats the last navigation to you and fires the LED array again. So if you just missed it because someone cut you off, you're like, well, when was the next corner, or I've forgotten. You press that and it repeats the last thing again to you. Because often when you're out on the road, especially on a motorcycle, there's just so much happening around you that you can miss voice very easily. So that does it again. If you hold down the map icon, what it does is it drops a pin on the map and takes a voice recording up to 30 seconds and leaves it on the map for 30 minutes. So if there's a downed tree, or say for example you're riding in a group of people and the first person in the group has the Forcite app, they drop a pin saying, hey, there's a police car behind a billboard up here, make sure everyone slows down, right? Every single person in that group now will hear that message from that person up the front as they go through that area. So that's the that sort of community thing. Even if it's not a police car, it could be like a downed tree. There's a downed tree here, or a pothole, or a bit of oil on the road, and all those riders will hear it for the next 30 minutes. So for example, Waze, you have to enter it in on your phone. So if you're a driver, that's, I guess, okay. But when you're a rider, it's next to impossible to take your mobile phone out and do that kind of stuff. So you could see us as the sort of ways of motorcycling, So other than that, the last thing is in the center. there's a button. You press the center button, turns the music on and off. But if you hold it down, it actually activates Siri or Alexa on your phone. So you can do your own little voice command stuff through the phone or local. Other than that, the helmet has peer-to-peer communication over VoIP, and 20-meter communication close range over Bluetooth. So you are able to talk to friends through the chat group inside the app. Where this gets like super interesting is if I have a Forcite helmet and I'm riding around and I find another person with a Forcite helmet and I pull up next to them at the lights, it'll ask me if I want to talk to them. You're like, hey, this person wants to talk to you. It's like, yeah, I want to talk to this person. And then it'll set up the link. So by pushing all that into our app and our software, we've actually been able to create functionalities that are really intuitive and like super automated versus really hard to set up old school Bluetooth systems, which are out there on the market now.
Interesting. No, very cool. That's awesome. So I'm curious though to go through. Obviously, you built a helmet for a different and a vertical. How much of that technology and research that you guys did, and maybe even some of the prototypes, could you move into the motorcycle space? Did you have to basically start from scratch? Could you take parts of it, or walk us through actually getting a first few prototypes of a motorcycle helmet?
You know, we built like countless prototypes. I have boxes in my garage of hundreds of different ways that you could build a smart helmet. And I swear that I've built like almost every sort of competitor's version like at some point, and tested it out on the road and gone like, no, that won't work. Because like business model wise, you have to make it work as well, and assembly wise, and assembly time, and shipping, and like there's so many factors when it comes into designing a product, and that's like my sort of background. So anyway, like when we built the snow sports helmet, we learned a lot about impact forces around camera systems, and we learned that you can't put a lithium polymer or lithium ion battery in there. It has to be ceramic. And there's a company called Prologium over in Taiwan that we work with that does ceramic batteries, and I think a few competitors have picked up on like that has to happen. So, we found that technology, we tested it, that worked really well. So that got incorporated. The way that we designed the circuit boards, the PCB boards, and the way that they're assembled into the helmet was not done in vain. So we kind of became like experts in building wearable technology that was for very high impact and was super light. And that learning was very easily carried across to the motorcycle product. So like we did this like really crazy looking 3D printed motorcycle helmet that we designed from scratch, and we were like, oh, this thing is like badass, like this is the coolest thing since sliced bread, let's do a Kickstarter. And I was like, I said to the team, like, at the time we were like 3 people, like, let's just chill out, let's go out riding with this thing and see if it actually works.
Sure.
And it was terrible. It didn't work at all. Like it was overheated. Like because like the camera system was at the top, it was too heavy. It was not aerodynamic. Like as soon as I went over like 100 kilometers an hour, it would start shaking. And like, man, we don't know much about building the helmet. So like, building a helmet is like its own art. Like we could do tech all day, but we don't know much about the helmet. So we need to find a big, first of all, a motorcycle brand to point us in the right direction of what type of technology we should put in, like a Yamaha, which we found. And now we need to find the biggest like manufacturer in Asia who builds helmets for like all of these brands to help us do the helmet. Yeah, so we got some tickets and we went over to Taiwan. And we found this manufacturer, which I actually can't name, over there, but does Japanese goods as well. So we thought that was a really good fit for us.
Interesting.
We ended up buying the rights to a shell design. Then we modified that shell design to suit our needs, and then got it all recertified for our technology, which goes inside. So that's how we were able to take a product from a sketch to market in about a year and a half.
Wow. Which is really fast, actually.
Yeah, it's super rapid, because it's like we're not doing any learning anymore. Like we've done all that. Like we've built all the broken ones. Like we've done all the things. it's like, okay, this is exactly what it needs to do. We know what it needs to do. We know how much it needs to be. We know how fast you need to assemble it. Like, we want no flex cables in it. Like, we want the battery to be like a dual battery system in the front. We want it to be non-flammable. We want it to take impact. Like, so we just got straight into designing it that way.
Interesting. And then obviously you guys had to build the little hand controller that sits on the handlebars. And then you had to basically build software that connected the three things together. So walk us through that journey.
Yeah, so we ended up bringing a guy on board named Joe, and he became our CTO. And he has a background in both consumer electronics, but he's a pretty hardcore computer scientist. So he's got about almost 30 years of experience in computer science. So so he was back in the day, when the first Macintoshes kind of came out,
Sure.
back then. So, but he's really intuitive when it comes to building different platforms that communicate to one another, and that whole IoT style back end for full stack. Like, for example, inside the handlebar controller, there's a Nordic chip, and the Nordic chip is a very generic like Bluetooth chip that you would find in a lot of wearable technology. And that speaks one language. So inside the helmet, there's a chip which is from a well-known camera manufacturer that speaks another language. And then there's another board which speaks three different languages with three different other components. So like what essentially happens is there's a lot of translation between all four systems that happen. And we're kind of writing our own sort of language that communicates in a really sort of robust manner. But one thing that was definitely for certain was there was no SIM card in the helmet, so we had to use 4G and 5G to pull the data in. Before someone goes out into a low reception zone, we have to save that data before they leave automatically.
Right.
We need to know if the helmet has been picked up or moved for conserving battery life and turning the camera on and off. And the Bluetooth connectivity needed to be both long range and short range, but not let the customer connect, like have to sit there and connect 5 different devices. You know what I mean? Like it needed to be one channel. Like, and that's where it got really difficult, is because this, in essence, this product is predominantly connectivity. And anyone that's done wearable tech will understand very quickly that connectivity is key. Like if you don't have good connectivity, the product fails in a lot of its like functionality. So that's where we spent almost too much time, like trying to get all that to work. Antenna design is like a nightmare, and like different materials radiate different frequencies. It's very difficult to design that so close to the head because you have electromagnetic fields, things like that. So we needed to design it in a way where it radiated away from the head, but could also connect at distance. So it needed a high gain, and the higher the gain, the higher the EMF. So it actually astonished us that we're using about 10 decibels of gain on our Bluetooth system to connect the helmets together at long range, and we're getting about 30 meters of range. And like on like a click-on headset, they're running like almost 20 decibels of gain, which is like double the legal sort of limit to get to that 1.2 kilometer range. However, it sits away from the head outside of the shell, so it's not actually within the same category and standard as what we're doing. So so we're kind of limited by design.
Gotcha.
To what we did. Yeah. I think, did that answer your question, or did I just waffle on too much?
No. It's interesting because the thing is just trying to figure out where to put antennas and have something that can withstand, obviously, being in an accident. Like, just that alone has got to be challenging.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly difficult to get something you would think is. I found what I learned very quickly about product design is, someone will say, "Oh, we'll just put speakers in this," or like, "Yeah, we'll just do this, we'll just do that," and like they underestimate the sheer difficulty of doing something really simple really well. And I think Apple does that fantastically. Like, the new Apple Watches, like the way they connect and stay connected and get connected in the background, automatically disconnect, is like no one really notices them doing that, which is fantastic because that's how a good wearable should be. And we're taking that similar philosophy of like it doing everything sort of for you in the background. And all you're thinking is, yeah, it's all connected, it's all working. It's exactly what you want as a customer. Yeah.
No, I think what people don't realize about software and especially hardware, the easier it is for the user, the harder it was to design and build.
Yeah, exactly.
And the longer it
like
took,
Fitbit,
right?
Like a Fitbit, like a Fitbit with 3 little lights on it, that vibrates like a little bit when you hit your goal for the day.
Yeah.
That was the first product that ever did that. The amount of like engineering that went into making that simple, it would be mind-boggling. Yeah, so like, like a complex product with a whole bunch of engineering, like a self-driving car, like that's got so much technology inside, so much like LiDAR systems and computer vision systems and like neural networking systems and like, all of that stuff. Like when I think about it, it like, gives me nightmares of like how that would fail if it could fail. So like, I'm very fearful of self-driving vehicles as a motorcyclist because I know what's going on. Like, I'm like, oh God. If I run behind a tree or something and the LiDAR doesn't pick me up, I'm going to die. So like, and that's where we come to now. Like, you have this whole emergence of like self-driving vehicles and transportation. It's just a massive sector, and like motorcycling is a like $47 billion market per year just in premium motorcycles across the world. And where does it? It's been totally kind of neglected. So what happens when there's self-driving cars everywhere? Like, where does it leave the guy on the Ducati who still wants to ride it? You know what I mean? Like, the detection gets really good, but how do we alert these self-driving cars of the locations of motorcycles or scooters? Now, if you think of like over in the third world, like Asia and Indonesia and parts of China and stuff, like, when the self-driving cars go over there, I'm sure you've been over there before, like it's just a mess of like scooters and bikes and stuff. So two-wheel transportation is really like the number one thing that happens over there. And like everyone has a scooter, like it's a normal thing, but they can't necessarily, afford a helmet. So like what we thought was like, if you download our app and you report this information about the location of like, where these accidents are and road traffic movement, we have everyone using our app to kind of earn a helmet at like 10,000 kilometers. We'd happily give you a helmet in return for that information. So that information would mean that you could feed that to the self-driving car network. Like, it's like, okay, so how do I implement the new Tesla in Indonesia? Like, it's next to impossible, right? Because all the computer vision and LiDAR systems would be just going off the charts at like the amount of scooters. So the Forcite app, if everyone has that in their pocket, that could actually communicate to the car the location of all these people that are around it. So, and that brings me to like this whole thing about privacy, and I think we could kind of talk about that for days. But we don't track like people's location unless they allow us to, and we're not doing that today. So,
No, interesting. Yeah, there's a bunch of issues that people don't think about, and you're right. You would basically have to notify the self-driving car that you're coming up to it or you're around it is the only real safe way to do it. It's probably not even 100%, right? So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, like I always thought like, everyone has a mobile phone on them, right? And I'm sure like self-driving car companies have already kind of thought about this, but maybe they haven't. There's a freebie I'll just chuck out there for anyone doing self-driving car stuff. But every phone has a Wi-Fi signature and a Bluetooth signature. So it'd be pretty easy to work out that there's a small Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signature from a phone, not from a router, but from a phone near the car. Yeah, so if it was near the car, you could measure the distance and you could say like, even though I can't see this person behind the tree line, there is someone there because I can see a signature from an iPhone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Like that's the kind of thinking. I'm a very sort of practical type of engineer. Like I like to, before I jump into computer vision and neural networks and all the most complex, beautiful solutions for things, like I I really like to nail down how do we do this like for $1, right? Like
Right.
what, and then scale up from there. So and I find in like Silicon Valley, everyone just jumps into the most extravagant solution because they can raise a whole lot of money, but maybe that's not what is needed to get into the market. And that's the way we feel about our product. Is like, well, customers are ready to buy it now. It doesn't need a headless display. Like they're going to buy it the same they would the competitor product right now, and I'm going to get to market quicker.
Yeah.
And then after it's in the market, I can look into licensing models. I can look into all the crazy computer vision or reality stuff later. But but the first point is getting into the market. So it's that lean startup sort of approach, I guess.
That's actually really good advice, because you're right. I think a lot of people think they need millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to launch a hardware kind of software connected, because you basically launched 3 products, right? 2 hardware, 1 software as an app, but and it's interesting for somebody like yourself to basically openly talk about you don't need tens of millions of dollars to do what you guys did, right?
No, not at all. Like we raised $1 million Australian, which would be like 700,000 US dollars.
Got you.
And we returned that entire amount within 1 year in revenue.
Wow.
So it goes to show, like, if you, with a team of 8, we have a team of 8 people now full time.
Okay.
We were 3 at the beginning of that process, but like, just a clarity of thought, like, can really like, and a small team that just really wants to build something can be very effective. Like, for example, like if you listed out all the functionality of your product, and then you had your consumer base and your community online, you just grilled all that functionality, and you found that there's 3 things that we have to do. Like the camera has to work, right?
Sure.
The audio has to work, the alerts has to work, and then there's all these other things which kind of like come like these cool ideas. You have to be really sort of religious and say no to like a lot of those things and go, no, we're not doing that. Like, we're going to do these 3 things, but we're going to do one thing, and we're going to do it brilliantly. And we're going to use our brand and our community and things that aren't tech orientated to help us get into the marketplace. And like, I feel like brand and, like customer equity is like really devalued sometimes in tech companies, because you have a whole bunch of like engineers who are, brilliant at doing their jobs, but don't see it from like the customer's point of view, make a fantastic product, launch it out into the market, and no one's buying it. And you're like, oh, what do we do now? So they pump another $10 million into it and try to like resurrect the market. But at the core, like, they weren't sort of efficient in saying like no, and moving forward with things that every dollar equal to $10 of return, right? So
it's actually really good advice. No, you're right. A lot of people just think that they need to cram as many features as possible into whatever they're building. And you're right. You just need to do a core set of features really well, get feedback, and then figure out which other features to build. And they may or may not be some of the features that you thought were going to be important, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we were looking into like video editing suites like for ages, and we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could see how fast you're going on a video, and investing all this time. And then like I kind of like drew a line in the sand, and I said, hey guys, like, the customers actually care about this? Like, is this actually something? So we built a little app which had done it in like a video way. It wasn't actually like built. It was kind of like fake, know. And then we did our user testing, like went out there, did some focus groups, all this, come back, and I was like, they don't care about that. And it's like, why are we spending so much time on it? It's like, they care about this more. Like, they care about a reliable camera. Let's focus our energy on doing that. And I think Y Combinator does a lot of this kind of back and forth sort of beta testing, user testing stuff, and I think that's why they all have quite brilliant products which come out, because they deeply involve the customer base as they build it. So,
no, that's really good advice. So, do you have any other advice for people that are looking to build a hardware software product that clearly talk together and basically need to seamlessly connect and disconnect from each other as needed.
Yeah, like buy a ticket to Taiwan.
Okay.
get over there first. Find what existing technology is there or similar products that maybe other companies have already invested millions of dollars into building.
Okay.
Right. Who has like already developed like a really cool way of like doing what you're doing, but they're almost, 50% or 45%, even 20% of the way there, right, with a different type of technology. Then build a relationship with that particular manufacturer, so you're not starting from scratch. Like you never want to start from scratch on especially if you're a startup company, you don't have time to go through big Foxconn style sort of R&D process, because you just can't afford it. Like it's not going to happen. So you got to think real lean and get over there, go to Taiwan, or if it's China, I personally don't work with China that much, but I have my own reasons. But in Taiwan, it's fantastic. So go around, get a translator. They take you out to all these different vendors. You see all these cool products. You have a lot of hot pot and drink tea in that. And you eventually find the components that you kind of see going together. Once you have that, then the whole process of going to market is so much easier. And if you're you were sitting at a bar today and a friend, you're sitting next to a friend, you're like, hey, let's build this hardware product. Let's go. My first question would be what's the problem you're really solving? And how do we do this in the most simplistic way using existing sort of tech to get to the prototype stage? And what's the fastest way we can get to mass production with it? But also, how much functionality can we offload into software? Software is fantastic because rather than respinning a circuit board, which is very expensive, doing an app update is super simplistic. I'd rather build app software every day of the week than redoing firmware or redoing and I take it back to that original Fitbit with the 3 little lights, but a fantastic app. That's a great product, especially as an introductory product into the market. And I often see startup companies and people I just work with going, oh, but Apple does this. We can do it because Apple does this. Oh, I've seen that happen with Samsung, or I've seen that happen with this other brand. And I'm like, they have engineering teams, just for Bluetooth, they have 20 people.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just because they do it doesn't mean we can.
Sure.
So let's find someone who's done that and use that chip. That's my advice. Yeah.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. You're right, because you can't really compare yourself to the Samsungs or the Apples, because they literally have chip designers, and then like you said, they have dozens of people that just work on one little piece of what you're trying to build, right? Yeah. No, that's really good advice.
I'm sure just the strap of the Apple Watch had 5 people on it. You know what I mean?
If not more, right?
If not more, a huge design firm probably worked on that. I don't know, but when you got the cash, sure. But that type of mentality you need to just throw away super quick and go. Don't take anything for granted on any product that you see out on the market, especially from a big brand. The amount of engineering that goes into an iPhone would blow your mind. If you actually saw it.
I can imagine. Yeah, for sure.
The new iPhone, was it 11 now?
Yeah.
Is it 11? The one with the 3 cameras. I remember all my friends. I'm a bit of an Apple fan myself because I don't know, I just am. But
sure.
We won't go down that argument. But for example, they came out with the new, the 3 camera system and the wide angle camera on the back. And I work in camera stuff, and I was thinking, holy hell, how do they fit such a wide angle lens in such a small area, and have that resolution? I was mind blown by that. And I was like, wow, that's really sophisticated. The amount of time that would have went into figuring out how to do that, it's huge. And then people going, oh, but Apple hasn't been innovating for years and years. And I was thinking that would have just that step just in that bit there, huge innovation for like the smartphone market, but not seeing it. And like the battery life and the way it charges and the like even the iOS interface is quite brilliant. So, I take everything with a grain of salt. I think expectations of customers are getting more and more aggressive, but they want to pay less and less and less.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's like if the new iPhone doesn't like hoverboard you to work, it's a disappointment. You're like, wait a second. Yeah, like to your point, it's like, look, they just crammed 3 cameras into like a very small area and built a really good interface around that, and your phone lasts all day while you're checking your email and on social media.
Exactly. What do you do? Like, you go on Instagram, you might go on like Facebook for a bit, check your emails, and do some phone calls. Like, does it do that? Yeah, it does that. It does that amazingly. Like,
yeah, we're so spoiled.
We are. Like, it's you barely even see. Like, you go to like Indonesia or something, or even Taiwan. Like, barely anyone has iPhones. They're just like unachievable, like financially.
Right.
So like, and in the Western world, we have all these like brilliant plans. We get them for like $0 and all of this. So, and then we still complain about them. It's like, well, anyway, yeah.
No,
like you see someone in a McDonald's with an iPhone 11. There's like a 16-year-old kid. You're like, that's not possible in a lot of countries. So,
yeah, interesting. That is we do take a lot of stuff for granted in North America, and we are spoiled in a lot of ways. And like I like my day job, like I actually work in tech as well, so like the amount of devices I have is insane, and people are like, oh, like what phone do you use? And it's just like, don't ask that question because I have a different device all the time. Like it's just
I've got all of them. Like to be honest, because I had to develop on all of them. But exactly. I just like my go-to, my home phone is an iPhone.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's almost like it's like, oh, but it doesn't have all these features of like an Android phone, and I can't customize all this. I'm like, man, I do that all day, every day. Like I do that, the most customized stuff like the entire time. Like, when I go home, I just want a real simple, like kind of thing to look at. That's to be very sort of vain. Like when I'm at a cafe and I have my iPhone next to my coffee, I like that looks cool. Like together.
Sure. No, that's fair. I totally get that. And then the other thing too is like sometimes I use like a really old phone, like a really old iPhone that runs the latest version just because I want to disconnect. It's like I just want a phone that I can make some calls, get some text messages, and like maybe use WhatsApp and like a couple other apps. That's all I want this weekend or for like a week or two, So it's interesting.
What do you think of those like phone zero type of products? Like those they're like a phone away from your phone to stop your addictions and things like that. Like, do you think that's the right type of approach, or like should we just be more sort of conscious about the use of our phones?
I think for me, my answer is just use one of those older, slower phones that I could still access anything that I need to access. If I'm out and about and I really need something, I can get that app and it's going to work. I find those phones, and maybe it's just like a fear for no reason that I need to be able to access something, but I find with like an older iPhone or an older Android phone, when I use those, it's like if I need to send somebody a file or do something, I can still do it, but I have to make the effort to install that app, or the phone's really slow for a while, so I don't really want to do it. I like second guess whether I can wait until I'm back at home and just like use a computer. But I don't know. I think we're kind of too early on in that, and I also think most people just have a device and the screen time stuff or they like digital well-being on Android, they just like lock stuff out, and I think it's kind of see what people need to do, but I think most people can't afford more than one device, right? And it's kind of stupid to carry 2 phones. As somebody that's carried 2 phones before, it's a pain. It's a real pain.
Yeah, this doesn't fit in your pocket correctly, especially if you ride a motorbike or something.
Yeah.
You look like you have a tumor coming out of your leg.
Exactly. Exactly, right? So.
Last thing I want to kind of ask as well is like, it's a different topic actually.
Sure.
Yeah. What's your favorite invention? Because I have a really wacky one.
My favorite invention.
Like
of all time?
Yeah, like of all time. Like, yeah.
And does it have to be hardware or software?
No, it
or
could be,
both?
no, it doesn't have to be hardware. It doesn't have to be software. It could be anything, right?
For me, it has to be the internet. I know that's like probably like a crappy answer, but my
That's a good
entire
answer. That's a good thing. Yeah.
but like I guess the only reason I say that is because like everything I do from my job to basically like devices and being connected, like I'm always online. And I think for me, like I miss it. Like after I can go maybe a week tops, like 7 days, and like by day 3 or 4, I am itching so bad to get back online. It's that
Mm.
that for me is probably maybe a cop
Oh,
out
I can't
answer,
really
but
do my
for
job
sure.
correctly without it. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you had to use pigeons or something like that, it'd be
exactly.
quite terrible.
How
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I want to send this email to Intel. And you're just like, whistling for a little pigeon, and you wrap
exactly.
something around its leg and like kick it out there and wait 7 days and hope it didn't get eaten by a hawk. Like I could understand, but the internet is very important.
Well, and I remember not having it, right? And then remember getting on it early on, like in the early 90s, getting on it when it was like kind of a first kind of early dial-up. So for me, that's probably that. But
Dial
what
up,
about
yeah.
you?
Yeah, like I remember like the first time I got the internet on like this old compact computer and
Yeah.
a massive modem, and I had this reel like in my house, and it was like a like a 20 meters of cord of Ethernet that I'd have to go downstairs, disconnect my house phone, plug that in, wheel it upstairs at like 3 a.m. very quietly, then go up, connect it up to the computer, and then this horrendous dial-up noise would kind of come through the modem through the house, and my dad would wake up and be like, "You're not looking at pornography, are you?" I was like, "No, I'm not." So I remember the good old days, like floppy drives, and
Sure.
I was always thinking like, do the younger, like much younger generation know that the save icon is not a save icon, but it's actually a floppy drive?
Yeah, I think
So
most don't.
like, cause they don't, right? Like I talked to someone before and was like, "What's this?" Like I just drew a picture and they're like, "That's the save icon." I'm like, "That's a floppy drive." It's like, "What's a floppy drive?" So yeah, back to my invention.
Yeah, I'm
I
curious.
think the pool noodle. The pool noodle
Interesting.
is the pool noodle is a stroke of genius. Like
For
so,
sure. Agreed. Interesting choice,
do you know
though.
the story? Do you know the story of like how it
No.
became into existence? And I don't know if it's a myth, but like this is a story I know. So there was a big extrusion company, and they were making this installation for piping. I don't know what country this is in, and that was very terrible installation. So the company was kind of going bust, making these like extruded foam things
Okay.
in like bright blue colors and stuff. Like what just wasn't working. So they were kind of going bust. So the CEO put a whole bunch of them in his car one day, took them home. He was like so angry at these like extruded pieces of pipe, he just chucked them all in the pool at his kids, and they all started like playing with them. And and he thought, wait a minute, I let's make that into a toy, like a kid's toy. And I think like a similar story with hula hoop, but like now that's like $1 billion piece of
Sure.
IP, and no one even really notices it. And I was like, that's such a genius thing. Like, and when someone comes to me in a bar and they're like, I have a great idea, can I tell you it? And I'm like, is it pool noodle good? Like, is it something that, is it so simple? Like, how can you build $1 billion business with something that does essentially nothing?
Yep.
Right? Like,
Interesting.
because I think that's like just genius. It's like, that's like such a, like, no fuss. Like that's lean startup to like the most like nth degree, right?
100%.
So
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway,
No, I think that's great, man. But how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and when you're coming to the US?
yeah. So if you go to forcite.com, it's forcitehelmets.com, FORCITE. For Forcite, you'll be able to see the product, what we do. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you type Forcite into YouTube, it'll come up and you can see our race events and everything we do. We'll actually be launching a Golden Gate edition at a motorcycle store here in San Francisco, probably around June-July period, so just as your summer comes in. The Golden Gate edition will have the Golden Gate bridge like on a little logo on the back of the helmet. And we're also looking into how we can build an exclusive SDK for like the first 1,000 people who buy that. Also doing like, a couple of week delivery rather than, a monthly pre-order sort of stuff as well for that. So if you are interested in that, jump on our website, even our Facebook page, drop me a line. We'll push you on the list and make sure you come to those events and check it all out and see a demo. So yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Thanks a lot. See you later, man.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.